Hi Melbourne Food and Wine. I wanted to show you today how to make a proper Cuban sandwich. I think it's arguably one of the best and most well-known sandwiches in the world, but a lot of people don't really know how to make it. So join me and I'll show you how to make this very luscious looking Cuban sandwich. Take it inside. That's what it's supposed to look like. Come on.
Okay, so what are the first things you need to do if you're gonna make a proper Cuban sandwich is to make the roast pork. So in the sandwich you have layers of ham, but also of roast pork. This is just some pork neck, but you could use something like a pork shoulder. We're gonna give it a really good marinade with mojo, which is a very classic Cuban marinade of orange or lime or both, oregano, cumin, little olive oil, garlic. Put a little bit of the sliced onions in the base of the pan, cover that up and let it roast nice and slow for a couple of hours. And then after that, we will take it out and let it cool, and we'll slice it thinly rather than pulling it apart, as is the classic way. So I'll just start with a little bit of garlic here in my mortar and pestle. Give it a good couple bashes. It doesn't need to be completely smooth because it's just a marinade. So just kind of like that. And then in with some dried oregano, it's about a teaspoon. In with some ground cumin. And then juice of half a lime. Orange that I've been using for cocktails also goes in. And a little bit of olive oil also. So that's delicious. For the base of our roast, I'm just going to give it a bit of sliced onions. But we're not going to bother sauteing them or anything first. It's just to give a little bit of flavor. And if you have chicken stock, you can put that in the base of the pan. Otherwise, just put a little splash of water. It's just to give it a little bit of moisture, but pretty much by the end of it, it's going to be pretty dry in the pan, which is what you want. So, roasting tray. And with this pork, I've just salted it ahead. I try to give it as much time as I have for roasting it, but you could do that overnight. That would probably be ideal. So, onions in the base of the pan. And then here, all that marinade will go on. Just kind of roll it around in there. Right on there. Pour all that marinade on. And a splash of water. Cool, so then I'll just cover that up with some oil. And that is ready to go into a low oven, maybe like 160 for a couple of hours until it's quite tender. Okay, so our pork cooked for about 2 hours and it got just like meltingly tender. So I've gone ahead and sliced it up here. Now the things you need for making a proper Cuban sandwich. Number one, the bread is a pretty soft kind of standard. Now I just made this one a couple days ago. It's a good thing to use like day-old bread for. So it's a little more sturdy. Cuban bread typically always has lard in it, which is an important factor. But if you if you don't feel like making your own Cuban bread, if you just find something a bit soft with a soft crust, that's important, because if you have something like a baguette, let's say, where the crust is super hard, it's just going to cause everything to like ooze out of it. So we start with the bread. We have some ham, whatever you like, Swiss cheese, pickles, and some very classic yellow mustard. So we'll start with the bread, sliced down the middle, and some mustard, American mustard. Just spin it around. Cool. And then pickles, so you can use rounds or slices because I like quite a bit, but I'm only going to put them on one side because putting them on both sides would be a little bit too much. With our Swiss cheese, we'll go ahead and put 2 slices on each side, so it is quite a bit. And it's good if it kind of overhangs the bread a little bit because that'll melt in the pan. So ham on one side. Quite a bit of stuff in the sandwich. It's a big one, but when we press it in the pan or sandwich press, if you have one of those, it'll just kind of compact all together. So roasted pork down. All the way to the edges. Cool, and then bread. Just press it to kind of get it to come together a bit. And now the last thing that we'll do before we cook it, oh, actually I wanted to add a few of the onions from my roasting of the pork. Yeah. Cool. Some soft butter. So this is very traditional. You'll go to a lot of these cafeterias in Miami, which I would argue is probably where you find the best Cuban sandwich these days, and they just slather it on. They're just making so many of these. Butter on both sides. Cool. Okay, so next we're just gonna cook it in the pan. All right, so I put the sandwich down into a pan that's been preheated. I like cast iron, and it's gotta be something wide enough that the whole thing can fit. I put it on top of some baking paper, and I'll put some baking paper on top. Put that guy down. And then I'm just gonna use another pan to press it down. And then I'll put something heavy like a, I don't know, a bottle of something or one of my sugar canisters on top just to hold it. You don't want to do this over too high a heat because it has to happen. It's going to take a few minutes to get that whole thing warm and melty throughout. So we have that on kind of a low heat, low medium heat, and we'll just let that do its thing for a few minutes and then check it out when it's done. So I think our sandwich is probably done now. Let's have a look. Ooh, yeah, that looks so good. So cheese is melting out. Nice crispy and crunchy on top. So we'll just get that out of the pan and onto the board for cutting.